you here. This is the third year that Stephen has been here with a couple of his students each time, performing poetry in response to some of our paintings, and really thinking about a kind of alternative interpretation of our paintings and the history, etc. So it's always a very, very lovely 45 minutes or so. Stephen, do you want to say anything?
Thank you so much for coming. It's lovely to see everyone here on a lovely Friday night. I'm dressed as a lemon. The procedure of how it works is that both the guest writer, the amazing Eley and two of my amazing students, Weerasinghe and SJ Singson, were asked to pick any painting they like over 3 galleries en route. They picked the painting and they wrote a new poem in response to the painting, ekphrastic. So that's the idea. It's kind of like a little moving tour with stops to hear these poems. And wonderful Fiona here, who's an amazing expert guide at the National Gallery, will give a little intro to each painting, and then you'll hear the new poem about the painting, and then we move on. And that's the kind of schedule and format. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. So if you want to just follow over this way, there is lots of you, which is great.
Squeeze in. We're going to be proximate. We're going to be sweaty. Don't be afraid.
Wow, we've got a walk.
Going to get sweaty. Get to the front, Cam. Get to the front.
Okay, so I would just say that if you are not as tall as maybe somebody who is in front of you, please don't be afraid just to move in front of them, but obviously in a polite fashion. So if anyone does want to move slightly forward and move in front of somebody else, that's absolutely fine. Okay?
Pushing is fine.
So brilliant. So before I hand over to Stephen, I'm just going to alert you to this work just here. We're in a room here with paintings by Rembrandt. Who has heard of Rembrandt? Yeah, a few people, quite a lot of people. So particularly successful Dutch artist. This work that we see, this is actually made, it was a preparatory sketch for an etching. We think if we look at it, it's actually quite devoid of colour, it's quite monochrome. But actually it's showing the moment that Christ is being presented to Pontius Pilate, and this is the scene of events, chain of events, that's going to lead to his execution. And you can see some of the caricatures that Rembrandt has created just in front. You can see the mob just behind and in front of him, and they're saying, actually Caesar is our only king, you know, he needs to, we want his blood. And so this chain of events unfolds. But as we cast our eyes just further up towards the kind of fabric drapery we see the figure of Christ. And actually Christ is slightly elevated here, and Christ is really the only one that's kind of looking almost up into the heavens and really thinking the fact that God is actually the ultimate judge for him. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Stephen.
Fiona! I'm not a Latin speaker. Is anyone a fluent Latin speaker? I assume most of you. Is it ecce homo or ecce homo?
Ecce.
Ecce. It's Ecce Homo by Rembrandt van Rijn. Okay, let's get on to it. Main character energy. This painting, switch your phones off. This painting is almost a description of rejection, but it isn't. This is the moment of the lonely son getting the full picture of his lively people. This is the 6 o'clock crowd, blurry and feverish, excited to be anonymous, wanting the one above to be soon below. They are sick of being threatened by the hopeful, miraculous. Trials are quite stressful. Here, Pontius Pilate is in his big chair, legs swinging like a toddler, and just as confused. And here I am, Barabbas, the dirty worker, the one of us, he who you would all choose over your superior. God is off canvas. And there we hail him. We vibrate with his creatures. We make our payments on time. And we would save his son if he gave us half a chance. The sun asks the afternoon for a question. What have we actually done wrong? This is not a depiction of rejection, because you cannot spurn that which will later save you from yourself. This is saying goodbye to a ghost. It is the biggest "see you, wouldn't want to be you" in Western history. Thank you.
Before we have another one of our poets, I'm going to just talk very briefly about this painting here. You can see we're not really moving anywhere at this moment, we're staying here for a minute. This is by a follower of Rembrandt. So for many years it was attributed to Rembrandt, but then in later kind of studies of it, looking at the brush strokes, it was realised that actually this wasn't by Rembrandt himself, but a very evocative, atmospheric work. Looking at this kind of streams of sunlight coming into this room. And as you look closer, you have to really, really guide your eyes towards the figure that we see here, sitting in front on this huge tome, this volume, this book. And then as we cast our eyes further to this side, we notice just in the shadows here, this bookshelf filled with books, but also globes mounted onto the wall. So we are looking at a scholar. And this idea of a scholar within this kind of gloominess here is really seeking some kind of enlightenment. But this idea of the contrast between the light and the shadow, the thickness of paint that the artist has used to actually create this as well. This was a really popular subject because Rembrandt himself came from Leiden in the Netherlands, and this was a very popular subject during this time. If we think about the university there as well, and I think for many years this is why it was initially attributed to Rembrandt. So on that note, Steve.
Reading next, Sinnead Singson.
This is Fishbowl Lightwarp. Fishbowl Lightwarp, what do you see that I don't? What is it that you carve through? Outstretch your hand and skim it over pompous brick. Dip in to scoop free desiccated debris. Sea sponge soak in mold, mildew, cobweb-crafted dust bunnies. Chew through it like chlorophyll. Shatter down in moisture. The scholar sits with his limbs dog-eared into knife-edge etched loft. He knows stagnancy better than anyone, knows the tannin-rich coffee sickness sitting under his tongue will chlorine sour his waterline, knows dark hallways and endless candle smoke, wax bleed on blank parchment. Even folded in, she reaches him. The ivories are dead and mourning, veiled in dust, cloth. Silence crushes like ice over bank and hay over back. A dull, throbbing kettle roll, softball hail on weary eardrums. Mortar muffles dragging soles. Light swims through supine air and springboard seeps into every crack and fissure. It rouses wood to creak, locks to click, and glass to bow. Window blocks scatter beams like coral and ice flowers, streaking quills and shuttering feathers. The birds cry worms in carnival. Tarsuit amalgams elbow-knee climb to talon curl around ankles, and coattails and desolate brains. Chloroform creeps like snubbed mistress. Unhinged snap shuts like snake oil. Shadows shroud men and minds in solitude. Cat claws and couch cushions. The morning is coming with its milk-fat rays. The sun is rising to kiss your cheeks, and your eyes haven't closed to thank her once. Books hold their arms open, and globes shimmy the dust off their shoulders. Floorboards weep, and ceiling beams sing. She strokes the scientist's face, coaxes fear and stillness and burning out, draws cooling ash and blooming clouds in. The air swells with the bereft knowing, a rattling hollowness against the thick soda-lime glass. It feels like sea spray, a bitter tang to unfurl like petals of breaking dawn, a sweet sour melody to dissolve into your skin as the sunshine sinks into us. We unknowns, specks of nothing, hurtle into that tiny forever, and faceplant reflections to fall still on the sill like birds and leaves and lovers. Tip your cap up and we'll know who you really are. Swipe the dust off the desk, flour off an apron, and cook up a philosophy worth your salt. Swill sun round your mouth, saline, aperitif, and find it tastes like orange liqueur. It doesn't have to be stale again.
Anyone seen this painting before? Anyone think they might recognise this painting? A couple of people. It's actually by one of the very few female artists that we have in the collection. So 2,400 paintings in the National Gallery collection and around 27 paintings by women artists. So this is painted by Judith Leister, and for many years her work had been attributed either to Fran Hels, who was very successful during his lifetime, or her husband, Jan Molyneux. And it was only in the kind of towards the end of the 1800s that it was discovered that actually a lot of those paintings were painted by her. She had a very particular signature, a J and an L with a star, and this was all to do with the idea of the North Star. So this particular painting here, this would have been seen as a kind of moralising work. And this idea that he who scratches the cat is, going to get hurt. So if you're looking for trouble, you are going to find it. She painted lots of these types of painting with smiling figures. And these two children here, probably brother and sister, who are dressed almost like mini adults, so wearing the costume, the clothing of adults, which again was relevant for the time. But you can see the boy here, he's holding on, he's squeezing an eel, trying to tempt the cat, but also with his other arm holding tightly onto the cat so that doesn't escape. He's looking up, but actually it's the girl here that's wagging her finger and warning us of what might happen if we try and get into too much trouble. You will notice as well, the painting is quite dark in terms of the palette, not only in the clothing that they're wearing, but also in the background behind. So before I hand over, I would just encourage you to look up this artist, Judith Leister, and see what a marvel she was. So thank you very much.
Eley Williams, ladies and gentlemen.
Apologies for the phone. Thank you for that introduction. And the poem begins with the title of the picture. A boy and a girl with a cat and an eel, titled like a riddle or an eating mistranslation of tongue twisters of learning aid. As it is, I am the eel, and I am the cat, and we are narrating our disapproval. We would wish to note our disapproval. See, I, the eel, flop my face away from you in shame, a wilted stem of a jilted bloom, while I, the cat, try to catch your eye. Are you seeing this? Are you okay with this? We would draw your attention perhaps away from our indignity to the sightlines of the children in the painting. Ignore the ventriloquist dummy teeth of our tormentor, or the knowing, ageless crone baby in her largesse and unobliviousness. The boy, unashamed of his fistful of eel, perhaps should be looking at me, the cat, poor stiffened record scratch of a pet, as he teases me with glass-thin, fish-fumy wriggle of me, the eel, poor slumped sliver of an elder and eldritch jelly, jealous of the cheese and lobsters of nearby still lives. Still lives never have so much dangling. You might think the boy would have turned his head and want to see my, the cat, feline reaction, to see me hiss and spit. That would be the point of his sport, yes, to bait the cat and make his slick hand worth the slickening of my slackening, my stinking in the light. But, as it is, he's looking up and along, taking in the curved glass of the gallery itself. Why might that be? And do we not see a something of something beyond mischief in his glance and uneasiness, as if surprised by what he sees there? And the girl is looking out at you, although her hand is primed around the bell rope of my tail, the cat, enjoying the warmth of me before the cold yowl she dreams of every night in the lidless dark. And she knows the moral of the nursery rhyme. She might try to justify her cruelty with proto-Dr. Seussianisms. I, the cat, and I, the eel, exchanged a glance behind these children's backs before this moment, coming together as hissing pet and gloss legless prey. And imagine the point of such a demonstration, what learning outcomes and objectives, what impact. And it might go, we think, along these lines of sight and sound and resounding browns and whites stitched up, framed as we are. Oh, children dear, come gather round, a lesson here is to be found, a girl and boy on hats so fine and bonnets crisp and collars white, to tease the cat against the right. And though their fun a grand design, the boy held high an eel so sleek and lured the cat so lean and meek, with ears pinned back and eyes aflame. The feline squirmed beneath his arm, while mischief wove its charming harm. The children played their daring game, the girl no saint, but naughty gleam, her fingers curled as if to scheme. She eyed the tail, a tug in mind, while wagging once for warning hand, pretending rules she'll understand, but still she planned to be unkind. Oh, brother dear, she giggled low, how far, I wonder, can we go? But cats, my dear, are quick to turn, a hiss, a swipe, a scratchy sting, and soon the boy began to learn that teasing comes with claws that cling. The girl, though quick to feign regret, she held her laughter, no lesson yet, but heed this tale, for now you've heard, when folly tempts, beware the word. He who plays with cats gets scratched, they say, so keep your mischief far at bay, for even dressed in fashion ground, the finest collars, hats, or hand, if trouble's what you seek, beware, for trouble lurks with sharpened stare. Something like that, we think, the cat and I, the eel, and I, the cat. We think that this might be their song, that this might be the reason for our staging and our roughhousing, for our being mishandled by these idiots and these idiots with their ruddy fingers, jibe ready, jab ready, darting eyes. The boy and a cat and an eel and a girl, an earl and an eel and a cart with a boy, and we draw attention here again to her stare, a note of warning there, a grinning death head, and to his sudden bolt of caution, adrenaline making the surface of his eyes gleam hot, looking up across through time, through the windows above us where we voiceless use metaphors. We will have our moment, and he forever is unable to claim the satisfaction of seeing the mischief he has caused, or how hard we ill laugh and sink our claws into his arm for centuries yet in punishment. Thank you.
And we're going through into the next room. So follow.
Okay.
Okay.
17th century Mr. Brightside or something, but no one needs that, at least for on a Friday.
Might have been quite fun.
Well, we'll see. If this goes poorly halfway through, that's
We might
okay.
see.
Yeah. Encore. He was not lost in song, but the song lost him long ago, and his neighbours, on the one side at his desk attempting the most resplendent kind of reading, and at the other attempting their own more particular beautiful triangulation of music, try to pretend that his song is not true, that he is not there. The solo and the voice and the bounce of it on the arches and the cobbles and the brushwork and the catgut strung to the quivered tether of a fretboard. He arrived to a life pear-shaped, and he shall leave it so, drunk a little, and a little drunk, as glad as the full-throated sparrow in a hedge. The song he gives lung heft and breeze to, lifting the smallest extensions of the ostrich plume in his hat. The feathers lift a little, the lute lilts a lot. Lute lets lutes wheedle and noodle and improvise first pomp, then ceremony, then lachrymose, then burlesque, then sweet, sweet songs that chew cud as grief eaters must, where his head tips back as it did for wine or beer, or that top A flat so you can see the benefit of teeth and tongue and glimpse a palate the palate unplectrumed and beyond all clefts of tonic triads where you hope the quoted will believe you are exotic, where you hope the critics will not look up the stains on your lap and your trousers, but keep their eyes trained on what was the beautiful expansive throat that had such philosophies, that could distract from such pomposities and circumstances, that would be foolish to lasso that throat with a necktie or kerchief or proper buttoning of shirt. It is artfully rumpled, dear critic, would be my answer to any heckler. Look it up, it's meant to look like that. Crushed velvet is not a defeat. This was not meant to be an aria, just a man uncritiqued and singing for the songless, flightless ostrich, denuded now with feathers in the service of a pompous hat. And there are no critics, of course, not real ones, but he is used to shadowboxing. He used to know quotes to do with this instrument from Shakespeare, who at the time of his song and the time of its being mixed into pigment and red-nosed plastered, as he might be up onto the canvas with such delicacy, one, for Orpheus's lute was strung with poet's sinews, whose golden touch could soften steel and stones, make tigers tame and huge leviathans forsake unsounded deeps to dance on sands, while elsewhere unveronic the second staging of a quotation might run, as sweet and musical as bright Apollo's lute strung with his hair, and when love speaks, the voice of all the gods makes heaven drowsy with harmony, unquote. No one will say that of him. His lute is strung out with the usual twining, twangful taut wire, not the sinews or hairs of gods. And he doesn't think of gods much. He would much rather look at the rose windows in the chapel than the rest of it. The rose at the centre of a lute where the song might be stored, the chest of it, the hiccuping heart of it there beneath what he is never vain to think of as beautiful. Ostriches are many things, long eyelashes, leggy, loping, but not beautiful. But here, who would deny there are, yes, beautiful corrugations of his own knuckles near his own strings, near the peg box, which along the fingers, if you care to take his hand and guide him from this reverie, you might find the fact of the pads of the fingers worn down and calloused, because to lose yourself in song might seem effortless, but it requires practice to be so effortless, and practice means calluses sometimes, as if you were escaping a maze and only knew the true way out because you had abraded your very hands against the brickwork of the walls and their Flemish stacking of clay and smoke-blackened sweetness, and used the trail you left there of blood to guess which way you'd already come, just as a song might have a coda, and you double back and improvise your footfall on fretwork of the evening into the morning of the morning, sweet singing into the morning after, and the night before is the morning, and the unstrung, unstrung stars that fell from their constellations and landed here on a canvas to prick up his ears or prick his eyes with tears, to be fit as a fiddle, to face the music, to never see fit to change his tune. Thank you very much.
When an oyster slides down the throat of a man, it takes with it the inhibitions that affect unsexed air. At the beginning of the new world, new endings must be made. If you drink enough wine, you'll give your daughters new faces, forget their shapes. Cyclical sin, chase the snake and wring its neck, for daring to reveal how to relish depravity. Reject the stench of turpentine skies as the ash settles. Ignore the reflection of serpents in her eyes. Take a rib and animate mud. Bear the weight that greed gifts, gripped by a wanton curiosity to watch as this world is replaced. Temptations to turn and face the end, invades and reshapes the arms that once held you. Grab a string of pearls to wrap thrice around her neck as the world sets ablaze. Soft silk drapes around the shape of decadence, most undignified. Feel the acid burns of regret as flesh glistens and ignites, head heavy with fog. Sand can't keep falling forever, for the desert is finite, and the finishing touch is one made with eyes closed and breath held. So, hold breath. Gild the vessel that holds what's holding you hostage at the hands of those whose hands you've made. Spill forth beneath the shade that sulphur creates as it strangles the sun, create with unwilling unwant what you must to save what's left. Wrap around the roots that shelter promiscuity. Rip each tree bare of its branches, pluck the leaves and unsheath your sword. Think back to the holes you dug in the garden to bury deep down each mess made. Fruit overflows and falls out into hands outstretched. It's far too late to rescind consent. Salt still on your tongue, scrape off just enough to sweeten the last of the sour fruits, sour only to you. What would have been sweet, a battered, bruised peach, cut the flesh from each piece as it graces the plate you feed from. Live for now, of lies and deceit. The truth lies beyond the wine glass, and enough will blend the lines between the choices you'll come to make. Give and give in. Take the apple and devour it, core, pips, poison and all. Tenderness hurts when it bites. Forgive the hand that feels, the foot that feeds, a mouth that holds a mouth that needs a father.
I'm glad you on that.
This is pretty gruesome, isn't it? This is probably one of the most gruesome paintings in the National Gallery. A normal Friday night in room 24. Do people know this painting? Is this maybe the first time you're seeing it? Or any thoughts? Yeah, I think the same, maybe the first time. Yeah, pretty gruesome subject matter. So this story of a prince whose name was Cadmus, and his sister had been stolen by Zeus, and so he consulted the Delphic oracle and was told, actually, don't worry about that, actually follow the cow outside. And the cow outside is going to lead you to where you're going to build a new city. So that is what he did. And once the cow got tired, the cow needed water. Cadmus and his men, they found a spring of water, but there guarding the spring was a fierce dragon. And so the dragon started to devour the followers of Cadmus. And then face to face with the dragon was Cadmus himself. But he was able to defeat the dragon. And so he was told that he needed to sow the teeth of the dragon into the earth. And so this is what he did. And if you look closely, you can see those teeth devouring one of those figures there. And as you look even more closely, you realise that actually the body that you see here is not this part here. These are two separate bodies. And you look even closer, and as you look down, you see parts of bodies and you see bones. So Cadmus sows these teeth, and immediately spring armed men who start to fight themselves. 5 of them survive, and they follow Cadmus, and this is where they build their own city. But this really gave the artist this opportunity to create figures in these poses and this kind of classical poses, and really fill the whole canvas filled with them. You can also see that it's actually 2 parts of the narrative, because we have this very disturbing part at the front with the blood and the gore and the teeth, but actually if you look over into this part here, we see a little glimmer of light, and actually we see the moment that Cadmus is defeating the dragon himself. So thank you very much, and I'm going to hand you over to the marvellous, the wonderful SJ Fowler.
And I am the man who asked this dragon for directions. I am the man who had my face bitten off in response, for one good turn deserves another. Half-face, dragon feed, I carefully, casually traverse the void in a glorified plastic bucket. I have dragon balls, and other men marvel at my courage, digesting sarcastically in the belly of the beast, caustically passing my venom through a Tupperware. Who will show me the way to the well? The only way is through, the dragon says. The way of the teeth tits like seeds in the earth. The way of backing up your threats with action. I will bite your fecking face off, and all your mates, until they become a map of a promise to a timed appointment at the embassy of the oracle. Follow the tired cow now until it falls, and when the dragon back is turned, you can see it scaled, and none are balanced, but its livid pink tip of a tail obscenely probes your curly Tuesdays. What I have learned is that the journey is inward, and it has sent me here with you people, who look like a row of teeth staked in the earth. You who remind me of something I can't quite remember, and don't dare ask, that I want the dragon to eat me, to breathe fire upon me, honestly, for what says I love you more than complete and comforting consumption? Thank you.